let's say a hypothetical, if you were chosen, if you decided to run and you won, what would be some of the things that you would attack, like right away, some of the problems and some of the issues that are facing Middle Georgia and Bibb County, really?
Well, we've got a number of issues. Right now, I'm trying to get some work done dealing with blight in our housing stock. We have an enormous problem. You just have to drive around a little bit to see that.
Yeah.
We also have some systemic issues that need to be dealt with regard to poverty and education.
Right.
And those two things are tied up with one another. So basically, the kinds of things I would work on if I were on the new commission will be the kinds of things I'm working on now. It's a different venue, but the problems are basically the same.
Now, the district that you will be running in, do we even know? Because I know that they redistricted everything. So what district would you be running in if you were going to be running?
As I understand it, I live in what would be or will be District 8.
Okay, which is what area in Macon?
Well, it kind of stretches from downtown to the southwest, pretty much all the way to the edge of Village Green. So it's kind of a long district.
Okay. And how far is your district right now?
Well, right now I'm in Ward 3, and that covers downtown, basically out to Pierce and Pinona, over to Anthony, and then it kind of zigs and zags off Houston over to Linmore Estates.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Which is a big district. I mean, there's only 5 of them.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
So geographically speaking, there's not going to be that much of a change in the new
Well, that's quite a bit of a
consolidation.
change.
It is
That is
quite a bit
Yeah,
of
it's
change.
quite
To
big.
Village
Yeah.
Green. Village Green is way down there to Rocky
So, I
Creek.
mean, remember, you're talking
Bluefield,
about districts that cover the entire county now,
Yeah.
rather than
Okay.
just the city of Macon.
Right.
Okay.
That's a big change. Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
you've been dealing with the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
I chair appropriations, so I live and breathe the budget.
Okay.
Now, you were against consolidation.
I was.
Give the people, the audience, a reason why you were so adamantly against it. What really
Well,
fought for it?
there were two things, because I was in favor of the concept. I was concerned about the requirement in the new charter that a budget get a 2/3 majority to pass, and also the requirement that the budget be cut by 20% over the first 4 years. I think that's unrealistic. That said, that's in the past. It's not worth refighting these old fights anymore.
Right, right.
Consolidation is coming, and the task now is to make the best of it and do everything we can to make it work. Because regardless of what side you were on in that conflict over the summer, the pro-consolidation forces won. They carried the day, and we just need to come together as a community and make it work.
But now, your concerns are still out there. I mean, your concerns are still real.
Oh, my concerns are still real, but I'm not going to relitigate an argument that I lost.
I see.
Okay.
Well, so you think that budgetary-wise, we're going to be caught up again in some bankruptcy or some shortfalls once again?
I don't anticipate bankruptcy. The real issue is that 20% cut is required regardless of the needs for services that you have. And so actually that 20% cut should mean that in terms of revenue, that new government should be just fine. I worry about whether that cut's going to be able to be done and provide the services that the community needs. I also wonder whether, in fact, it will come to fruition, but I don't have any concerns about a future bankruptcy based on that, no.
Okay. Well, we had Jack Ellis here on Friday, and he talked about, Anthony had asked him about the $16 million that was in the bank, and then $10 million was allocated for salary.
11 million, actually.
Yeah.
It was 16. I'd asked him how much money was in the city coffer when he took office. He said 16.8 million. I mean, emphatically, he said it real quick. He didn't hesitate. And then I said, how much was in when you left office? He said 6 million. So about 11 million is gone. And then we asked him what he spent it on. Of course, you know, the same answer.
Well, I can give you part of the answer right there, and
Okay.
this may be the same one he gave you. The sales tax split with the county was renegotiated early in his term, and that was about $5 million a year, where basically residents of the city ended up subsidizing residents of the unincorporated county, and that was that had an impact on our budget right up until when the service delivery strategy was renegotiated, and we got some of that inequity taken care of. And of course, with the new government, you're not going to have to negotiate a sales tax split because there's one entity.
Right. And so he brought that up, and then of course he brought up that some of it went, we brought up the trips and how he was doing these trips not only for the sister cities because they're our sister city, but also in the case of like Ghana, how he went there and he was trying to get...
Well, there is a sister city in Ghana.
Yeah, there is. But he was bringing up the whole idea of also wanting to go to these places to get them to spend money, and of course this area, trying to do business with other countries and cities. Businesses. And bring them here. Then he claimed, of course, that because of his trip to Ghana in particular, how he had sold them basically some buses from Bluebird and all this, and which might be the case. But my whole thing was, my question for him was after that was we don't really see any of the none of the
benefit
the slide, right? Yes. None of the avalanche of that is falling in Macon's lap now, And as far as I know, Bluebird has been struggling for the past years. I know somebody works at Bluebird, and they're barely keeping above water. So our thing was that we questioned whether he really has he done anything that has benefited this city now after he's left office.
Yeah.
And of course he thinks he did, of course. And he is running for mayor again, he announced on here, as we all knew. But you worked with him, right?
No,
so you never worked with him? You didn't catch the end of his second term?
I was sworn in at the same time that Mayor Rickert was sworn in.
Okay. So you didn't really have to work with him. What were your thoughts, though? Let me ask you this. You were in Macon, right?
I was.
What were your thoughts during his administration? Did you, I don't know, I don't want to say did you believe him, but did you think he was a capable mayor? I mean,
I think he made some mistakes.
Right.
I think he would tell you the same thing.
Yeah, he did.
I think that actually probably the biggest mistake he made was agreeing to that 60-40 split with Bibb County when the sales tax renegotiation came up. And there are some reasons why that was a kind of fraught negotiation.
What was his reasoning behind that?
Well, basically, the way state law was written at the time, cities and counties both had a gun to their head to come to some kind of agreement. Because if you didn't by the end of the year, then you would lose qualified local government status, which means no grants from the state,
which is what
no pass-through from the federal government, and so you have to come up with something. And the bet, as I understand it, the county made was that they could play chicken a little bit longer than the city did because they could afford to hold on, having lost that qualified local government status longer than the city could. Incidentally, if he'd been making that same negotiation 10 years later, the law changed, and the process now is something called baseball arbitration. If cities and counties can't agree, each side tries to negotiate in good faith, and then if they can't come to a deal, each side puts up the number that it thinks is fair. They go to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator picks one.
Right.
It's kind of flipping a coin, no?
Well, would you like to see him as mayor again?
I'm not
putting you on the scene here.
Right.
Put him on a spot here.
Yeah, that's what
you're asking me to make an endorsement in a race that.
Well, not endorsement. I mean, because you admitted, you said, like he said, that he's made mistakes.
Sure.
But do you think he's someone that is a viable candidate to move this city forward again? I mean,
well, we'll just have to hear from him.
Yeah.
I didn't even see the show Friday. So.
Okay. Check it out. We had like an hour and a half. It's online. You can see all the clips online. But
well, I mean, I know the mayor is pretty flamboyant. Well, that's maybe not the right word, but he's a pretty personable kind of guy.
What do you think about? You don't want to run for mayor, huh?
I definitely don't want to run for mayor. I've got a day job that I like.
Okay.
What do you think about, and not to put you on the spot, but what do you think about how Mayor Rickert has been doing?
I think that he's done a good job as mayor. I have disagreed with him on a few things, and we've butted heads pretty publicly on those, but I like Mayor Rickert. I think he's a good man, and I think that on the whole he's been good for the city.
Okay. And what do you think about the winning this grant, this money for the 2nd Avenue corridor project? Do you think that's going to go smoothly? Because my concern is, where's the money going to go, and who's allocating, and who's overseeing that money?
Well, it's coming through my committee.
Good.
And what we have is $8 million in the SPLOST for that, and I think potentially that 2nd Street project could be transformative. I think that you can see a precedent for that in Greenville, South Carolina. And I think that's the model that we're working off of here.
Okay.
I think oversight absolutely is essential. One thing that I think has gone very well so far is the people we brought in for planning have been very proactive in seeking input from residents of the neighborhood
Okay.
where some of the changes would take place. Because this is not something that we want to spring on people as something that we're doing to you. This is something that should be a project that benefits the whole community, and if it's going to work, it needs the participation and support of the community.
There was a person in the chatter, Mr. RPM, asked a question. SPLOST paid for 17 new police cars. What is the plan to replace them in a few years?
That's a good question, because actually you need to budget for police cars basically every year. You don't want your whole fleet getting old at the same time, and police cars get used pretty heavily. And so, as I understand it, the plan right now is we've got a couple more years of SPLOST money. I would have to look to do the next year or two, but it's been a general fund item before, and I would expect it to be a general fund item under the new consolidated government. Because, I mean, police cars are basically consumable items, and I think there is a good philosophical argument to be made that you shouldn't spend capital funds on something that is essentially consumable. But I think the SPLOST on the whole is a good deal for our community, and I'm absolutely confident that we're going to be able to purchase those police cars in future budgets with the new consolidated government.
Well, now with the consolidated government, your position is going to be basically eliminated, correct? So who's going to handle what you're handling now?
Well, that's up to you guys and all the voters in across Bibb County. There will be elections, primaries next summer, general election in November, and it depends on who you decide to put in office.
Okay.
Well, I mean, is somebody going to be announced as that person who's going to be handling budget ahead of time? In other words, should we know who we're going to vote for, who's going to be handling the money?
You will not know committee assignments ahead of time, as I understand it, no. But, I mean, I think what you would want to do is make sure that everybody that you consider has some financial responsibility. Because, yes, there's going to be a chair of a finance committee, but the fact is that the budget is a team effort, and you're going to need everybody on that commission acting responsibly. Remember, 4 commissioners could block a budget under that new charter. And so you want to make sure that everybody has some good, solid understanding of the new government's finances.
Okay.
Are you for any more SPLOSTs? We have a person out here saying no more SPLOSTs. They want to make sure that that was read. And what do you feel? I mean, that last one didn't go through. What was the last one?
The T-SPLOST.
Yeah, it was for Georgia.
Yeah. What was your take on that? Were you for that, the transportation?
I was not a fan of that. I think that basically the transportation SPLOST was the General Assembly punting on transportation policy. Dividing the state up into 12 regions is not a way of having a statewide transportation plan. It's a way to make sure that your transportation system is balkanized. I was also not a fan of the list for the Middle Georgia region. To me, it looked like a project list for 1950. And so we've got
a lot less cars.
No, actually, I mean, it's built around cars and not imagining any kind of transit. Not much in the way of dealing with pedestrians or bicycles. None of what we're working on now in the 21st century to make our cities more livable and easier, better to get around.
Well, let's talk a little bit about mass transit, because that was something else that Mr. Ellis brought up, a rail system. Why is Macon suffered for so long not having some kind of a rail system? We already have basically a rail system already. I mean, why not try to utilize that or come up with a different plan for, let's say, like a speed rail? Like the kind they put in New York where they put it right on the highway. It cost, I mean, it was expensive, $1 billion. That's a lot of money. But remember, we're also talking New York.
Yeah.
And
you have people from, not only from New York City going, but also people outside the states.
That's correct.
Boston and Philadelphia.
Sure.
And the rail system does extend out to Hoboken and all that. I mean, they really went all out with that little rail that runs down the highway.
The Northeast Corridor is one place where rail has worked really well. And where there's a very good, solid system. Even there are public subsidies, but it's understood that those subsidies basically pay dividends in terms of economic development. The answer as to why Macon isn't connected to a rail system right now comes down to one simple answer: it's money. And the city of Macon and Bibb County don't have enough money to run their own rail system. It would require statewide effort. In fact, just going back to the police car, one of the things that was so problematic with it was that in dividing the state up into regions, it made ideas like commuter rail or high-speed rail to Atlanta very difficult to implement.
Too
many
small towns?
Well, you were talking about a project that would have crossed 3 different regions, and if it passed in 2 and didn't pass in the other one, well, you've got a big problem there. And so it just didn't end up on any project list. And I think that's really unfortunate.
We have Hard Tart here, guest. He says, if it's up to the people that are voting as you say, which is referring to what you said, Mr. Ellington, then why are you bringing people in to do the planning?
I guess he's talking about outside entity. Why is Macon dependent on a lot on like bringing in companies like when they do the streets?
Being globalist, so to speak, as one of our chatters said during Ellis's time here. Called him a globalist, basically.
I'm a big believer in using experts who know how to do urban planning right. And we have brought in a group from Atlanta that has a track record in revitalizing East Atlanta, and I think that we can expect that same kind of result here if we give them a chance. I recognize expertise. I want to be responsible, but I don't think that you want me personally planning your roadway. I'm not an engineer or anything like that. I want help with the process. I think the question came up also about bringing people in for the planning. This group has had meetings at a variety of locations, churches, community centers, and so forth, with people who are in the neighborhoods affected, because we want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on and also has a chance to contribute. I mean, basically, these meetings early on were chances to solicit ideas.
Having said that, with what you were talking about, getting experts, which improved on the transit system in East Atlanta,
I'm not talking about transit system in East Atlanta. I'm talking about neighborhood revitalization.
About the actual revitalization.
But transit is likely to be part of that. I mean, the Second Street project could very well end up with either bus rapid transit or even light rail. Light rail's nice. It's good to have a dedicated line like that.
Like
but
MARTA?
MARTA's really heavy rail. But if you look at a trolley system like in Baltimore or St. Louis or places like that, you're basically on street level. That's light rail. But even light rail is more expensive than just dedicating a lane to buses, and so they're both good options in terms of being able to find the money. Bus rapid transit is a little bit easier to do.
I see. Do you think is it possible to expound that at least on a statewide level at first, and then grow like the highway system, like I-75? Not necessarily have to widen it like they're doing with Pleasant Hill, but is it possible to have a much more organized?
I think so. We're going to need some vision at the state level, though, because this is not something the statewide transportation system is not something that one locality is going to be able to fix. And if you want to see something that will break your heart, go back and look at rail maps of the city of Georgia from the early part of the 20th century, because we did used to have passenger rail here. People talk about getting on the Nancy Hanks here in Macon. Every city of any size was connected by a passenger rail network at one time, and many of those systems had trolley systems, so you could go from one city to another and then hop on the trolley. Most of that's gone. I mean, we see a little bit of evidence of that.
Here, no?
We did have trolleys here. There are still a few streets where you can, in fact, see where the trolley tracks used to be.
Coffee Guy says, I've seen several communities talk about the new vehicle issue. Any idea how long each car is kept in service? I guess he's referring to the police cars.
Right. And you're really looking at a refresh cycle somewhere between 3 and 5 years, because those cars get driven all the time. And if you're talking about somebody patrolling for a full shift, that's a lot of miles, and it's not highway miles.
Daily,
and they do leave them on when they leave them running all the time.
So switch gears a little bit. Why and you might not have any say in this. Were you on the UDA? Are you on the UDA?
No, I'm not.
You're not. But why isn't the wall at Barefoot Tavern down yet? After roasting's been removed, I'm wondering why. Every time I go down there, I don't see Caesar removing his wooden wall yet, and I thought that was part of the deal. Am I right?
I don't know, but my understanding of the deal was that, and this is just based on what I read in the paper,
right?
That that would be revisited when that license came up. So I think that deadline.
Do you remember what the license is? Anybody? The
well,
deadline was?
It's a sidewalk cafe license.
It's usually what?
But I mean, they don't last more than a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been up.
I'm just trying. I don't know when his license is up either.
Right.
I was just curious as that. Okay, something else we also do on here, Tom, is we ask all our guests, what's one mistake you've made, or if you want to word it differently, what so far in your tenure have you done that you wish you'd done differently? What one thing comes to mind first?
You know, I regret not appreciating how much danger the Georgia Music Hall of Fame was in sooner. I'm not sure that we could have saved it, and I certainly put some efforts in. We organized 2 fundraisers with local musicians for that, but really that was too little too late. I think that, honestly, the board, when it made the decision to pull the Georgia Music Hall of Fame, made a call that was indefensible and politically motivated as a favored people in Atlanta. But I wish that I had been more on top of that issue a little bit sooner. I can also tell you that coming in, I didn't appreciate how slowly the wheels of government move sometimes, and it's just a matter of pushing and pushing and pushing. I don't know that that's necessarily a mistake, but it is something that I had to learn.
Right.
Yeah, you have to stay on top of your game here. If not, it gets lost in the sauce right away.
Right. And speaking of on top of the game, when you brought me in, I think we were talking about football. And let me just tell you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how excited I am about the Alabama team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that your alma mater?
That's my alma mater, yes.
That's it. Okay.
I was there for the '92 championship with Coach Stallings, and I've really enjoyed Nick Saban. I saw somebody a couple of weeks ago describing watching Alabama game as being kind of like watching somebody get a piano dropped on them.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly hoping that's what's going to happen with LSU this weekend. I'm a little bit nervous about that one.
Oh, you are? I was about to say, do you think they're even going to get beat? Do you even think Alabama's going to lose this year?
Alabama could lose this weekend.
You think that's their only chance? You think their only chance of losing is this weekend? You think the rest of the season's kind of easy goings after that? No, you never going to say that.
You hope that
any
Western Carolina
Saturday
doesn't give you any trouble, but you know, we saw App State beat Michigan a couple of years ago. Louisiana Monroe's turned out to be dangerous this year.
That's right. What you got, Cap Jack?
That's why you play.
Ellington. You're mixing them up.
What is the national ranking now with Alabama and LSU and so forth?
Alabama's one.
Alabama's number one. It's still number one. It's still number one.
Yeah, they're going to be.
Yeah,
as long as they keep winning, they're going to be one.
Yeah, they're always going to be number one. LSU's
I think even if they lose one, they'll probably be on number one.
And let me say congratulations to the Bulldog fans.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I did not see that one coming, and if you're being honest, you didn't either.
Yes, I'm a UJ alumni. I'm just glad we're not in the same. Even though we're both in the SEC, I'm glad we're not playing each other at least. So at least not yet. So
we may meet in Atlanta.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely coming.
We hope you answer this question also, Tom.
Come on, bring it on.
We've had a few that didn't answer it. We've had some that answered it straight out. David Kuzno answered it straight out. C. Jack Ellis answered it straight out. 3 people, and I know you have to work with these people. Yeah. That's the answer we got from Al Tillman. Kind of run around. But 3 people in this government currently that you think, and there's nothing against them personally, that you think just are not holding their weight, not doing the job, and it's time for them to step down. Can you give us 3 people?
Well, we've got 21 who are going to step down at the end of next year.
You're being soft.
Well, I think Al's answer is
and
right.
Again, you don't have to say they're. It doesn't mean you don't like them as a person.
Right.
It's the difference between job and person. You know, people have to understand that. It's like it's the difference between doing the job and the person. But so are you saying? Do you think all 21 should step down? Is that your answer?
Well, all 21 are going to be out at the end of next year. Now, some may come back.
But how many of those do you want back? Let me voice it that way. How about I switch it for you to make it easier? Name. Urban did this a few weeks ago, and we put it on our site. Name the 10 people you would like to see as the 10 county commissioners.
Oh man, I don't even know who all is going to be interested in the job.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
let me tell
Who you
you,
know, like who you know as being good workers, who you think would be right for the job, whether they run or not. You can name somebody that would never run. I mean, if it's great, it'd be great if you said somebody that, for example, like, you know, if you said like Andy Ambrose or somebody just that we don't assume is running, but that you think would do a good job in that position. Give us 10 people, or, you know, if you can't give all 10, give us 5 at least. Just give us, who do you think besides yourself would be a good people to have in that position to maybe get this city turned around?
Well, let me give you a couple of names of people who have impressed me, and that doesn't mean I always agree with them.
Right, of course.
But I mean, that's part of the deal, is you work with people whom you disagree with sometimes.
Right,
Frank Tompkins has been on for a little bit less than a year and a half.
Right.
And man, Frank does his homework.
Right.
And if you see him anywhere, he's going to have a binder about this thick, just full of information.
But he's not Romney. No.
It's a regular binder of information.
Go ahead.
I expect to see a lot of binders full of women as Halloween costumes in a couple of days.
That's right.
That's true.
Sorry,
go ahead. Frank
Tompkins is one. Charles Jones, I've come to really appreciate working with him on the council over the last few years. He's a man of deep integrity. He's got an open mind. You may not end up agreeing with him at the end of the day, but you can have a conversation with him, and he will listen respectfully, and he will talk to you.
Right.
And I think that's really, really positive. So that's Alvino Ross would be an example of somebody else. I think it was a big loss when he had to take that job in Augusta. He's still here on the weekends. I did not know him well when I came on council. I ended up sitting next to him on the Horseshoe, and Alvino is a brilliant man with a great mind for numbers, and if you want to know property tax issues, I don't think there's anybody with more expertise than Alvino.
All right. Anybody else? You want to name those 3 as those are 3, by the way. I want you to hear this correctly. Those are 3 that he likes and that he thinks would do a great job.
Right.
Those aren't the 3 that he doesn't want to see.
Yeah.
Make that clear. Somebody else brought up on here, and I was going to bring it up anyway, but they reminded me. What do you have to say about the Judge Howard Sims debacle, we call it on here? I mean, wasn't that handled wrong?
I think it was handled wrong at the outset.
Right.
If you blow a point 0.083, I don't think that would normally be handled that way. As I understand it, legally, there's not a remedy on that anymore. I do hope that Judge Sims is getting the help that he has recognized that he needs. Alcohol addiction is a tremendous burden. I think all of us have known people who have gone through that. It's rough, and so
it is.
Our thoughts are certainly with him as he struggles with that, because that's not something that goes away. That's something that you just keep working on.
And that's a good point that you bring up. It doesn't go away. Accordingly, they say that alcoholism is a disease. Now, don't you think that because of that, he's basically not qualified, or disqualifies him from being a judge based on the fact that he has this so-called illness that is, in my opinion, could skew his judgment. I mean, here's a judge who's going to try to hold some people accountable to stuff that he's allowed himself to kind of get away with.
Well, he's
and
not.
His
he's not a
credibility
DUI
as far as
judge per se.
Well, I think that
you can't.
He didn't get a DUI because they fudged the numbers.
Right.
Well, I think you need to make
Right.
a distinction between somebody who is in active addiction, where in fact that may impair their judgment, their ability to do a good job, and so forth, and somebody who is an alcoholic who is in recovery. Because I
he's
wouldn't
in recovery
want,
now, but obviously wasn't in recovery before then. Not only that, I mean, this doesn't...
You're referring to 2 years ago when he got the guy to drive him to his son's
exactly.
baseball
Not
game.
only that, but look, let's face it, alcoholism doesn't happen overnight. This is a long-term... Who knows if this judge, before every time he left the house to go to the courthouse, was, downing a couple to go to... and I'm not accusing anyone, but alcoholism just doesn't appear.
You're saying his judgment was off when he was working, basically, on the bench.
Look,
possibility.
it's
I
conceivable
don't know that to be the
that he
case.
may have been even a little bit...
Well, I assume that's one of the questions the Judicial Qualifications Commission is going to be looking at.
I'm hoping that they make the right judgment, because obviously Mr. Modena dropped the ball. The police officer who
I wanted to ask you that.
him,
Did you think Modena's punishment of the 2 officers was sufficient? Do you think that was kind of soft? You know,
No.
he suspended
Was it
them both
lenient
for
or-
what, 14 days, and then one was also